The urban doom loop. Is it coming to a city near you? The Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC, is scrutinizing mid-sized regional and community banks over their exposure to commercial real estate, or CRE, in their loan portfolios. The SEC's concern stems from the potential losses these banks could face due to the ongoing CRE credit crunch, which could lead to a reduction in lending. The regulator has recently released 4-letter exchanges where it questioned smaller financial firms about the CRE exposure. The commercial real estate sector, you see, is currently facing challenges due to rising interest rates and high vacancies, which have led to a decrease in lending and an increase in the prospect of defaults. Small and medium-sized banks, which have originated loans on many commercial buildings, could face losses for years. Regulators are monitoring whether the CRE losses will affect the broader financial system, reminiscent of the 2008-2009 financial crisis. The SEC is asking banks like Alaris to revise their future disclosure to provide a breakdown of their commercial property loan portfolio by borrower type, geographic concentrations, and other criteria. Other banks like Mid-Penn Bank Corp have been asked to present owner-occupied properties and properties not occupied by their owners separately in their disclosures. The scrutiny by the SEC is coming in the wake of the high-profile failures of some banks last year, which raised concerns that more banks highly concentrated in property debt could fail. 60 Minutes recently did an expose on this very issue. And in their episode, they talked to David Avram from Maverick Real Estate, who is keeping tabs on the debt on every office building in New York City and buys distressed debt on the cheap. He says New York is awash in billions of dollars worth of commercial real estate loans at risk of not being paid. He said, "We know that there's this buildup of bad debt in the system, but it's not being dealt with just yet. And it is in large part because the banks have been kicking the can down the road as best they can, trying to push this off as far as they can." 60 Minutes asked him, what does this mean? And in turn he said, it means that banks are entering into extension on a lot of their bad loans, which essentially changed their classification from non-performing loan, a loan that's in distress, to a performing loan, meaning a healthy loan, even though they haven't received a pay down on the loan, and the collateral value on that loan continues to drop. 60 Minutes goes on to point out that all of this makes for a very familiar tune. A downturn in real estate made worse by bad loans, which contaminates banks and potentially the entire economy. Echoes of the global financial crisis of 2008 are hard to ignore. Whether the trouble with offices ends in a simple pricing correction or becomes a systemic crisis, likely there's pain coming for building owners, banks, and for the cities themselves. Van Nieuwenberg, professor of real estate, said this on the matter. He said, in the long run, property taxes on those buildings will also fall by 40%, and those commercial property tax revenues are an important component of the budget of local governments, which means less money for police departments, public safety, less money for sanitation, trash collection, and some people are going to decide that, the quality of life has deteriorated too much, and they want out. And, in fact, that's what we've seen. And indeed, the situation is in fact quite serious. The current state of commercial real estate across the board in the United States is mostly one of significant downturn in property sales volumes, tightening loan standards, and rising vacancies. In 2023, for example, property sales volumes dropped by 63% in the United States, with lender counts falling across most major property sectors. Commercial real estate buyers are facing challenges such as higher borrowing costs and fewer lenders, which complicates capital deployment for purchases. The sector is also dealing with the impact of rising interest rates and the shift towards remote work, which has led to increased vacancies and downward pressure on office property evaluations. According to experts, it would appear that the next 12 to 18 months are expected to be critical for the real estate firms as they attempt to reposition themselves. However, the overall outlook for the CRE market in 2024 is muted, with concerns about high interest rates and the future of office spaces due to the normalization of hybrid working arrangements, among other factors. And this, mind you, doesn't even factor in another serious problem for the commercial real estate market, which is also facing a looming $700 billion in defaults. Now, worth pointing out here, there are some sectors that are doing well. And the states that have been least affected by the commercial real estate crisis are primarily located in the South, the Midwest, and parts of New England. The ATTOM Q3 2023 Special Housing Risk Report indicated that markets considered least likely to decline are mainly found in these regions. The South and the Midwest in particular have been highlighted as less vulnerable, which suggests that the CRE crisis may have a less severe impact in these regions compared to places like California, New Jersey, and Illinois, which are identified as the most at-risk markets. And it is also worth pointing out, and so I will, that states like California and places like New York City have been exasperating their problems with their horrible light-on-crime stances. Crime, you see, has always been a factor in commercial real estate decisions, and these places in particular are horrible for people to live in, due in large part to incompetent leaders who only know how to virtue signal, not stamp out crime. These places are rife with reasons not to invest in them right now. San Francisco, for example, is one such place. That city has seen a significant number of store closures in recent years, with crime often cited as a primary contributing factor. According to data provided by market research from CoreSite, nearly 40 retail stores have closed in Union Square's zip code since 2020. Major retailers such as Starbucks, Nordstrom, and Whole Foods have closed their locations in the city, often citing safety concerns for customers and staff. For instance, Starbucks announced the closure of 7 of its San Francisco locations, a decision that they said largely was influenced by safety concerns. Nordstrom also closed its stores in the area, with the company's chief stores officer stating that the dynamics from the downtown San Francisco market had changed dramatically, impacting customer foot traffic and their ability to operate successfully. Meaning, if it's not fun to be around San Francisco downtown, people are not going to go, and if no one's going, there's no money to be spent. You cannot allow criminal thugs to run your cities and expect them not to crater and eventually collapse. A recent article from The Messenger lamented the fall of San Francisco, pointing out that even as companies continued to call employees back to the office, vacancy rates remain significantly higher than pre-pandemic levels across most major markets. They went on to say that San Francisco has the highest office vacancy rate of all U.S. markets, with 20% of offices vacant in the third quarter. This, according to CoStar's analysis of markets that have an office asset value of at least $10 billion. And so here we are. Experts are warning of a looming crisis in the commercial real estate market that could rival that of 2008 if measures aren't taken. Morgan Stanley analysts have even forecasted a potential peak-to-trough commercial real estate price decline of as much as 40%, which would be worse than the Great Financial Crisis, or in other words, the housing market crash of 2008. And to be honest, my friends, recession could easily turn into a depression here. You see, the last time we were in this financial mess, our government got the bright idea to just borrow back into a prosperous economy. Our national debt, you see, at the beginning of the housing market crash in 2008, was just a sliver over $10 trillion. As of January 29, 2024, the national debt is now sitting at $34.14 trillion, which is insane. If you think we can borrow our way out of another crash, think again. And what do you suppose our fearless leaders in government are doing? Well, they're adding to the problem. For the year of 2023 alone, our leaders in Washington managed to spend $510 billion a month. You heard that right. $510 billion a month, which means they spent roughly $6.13 trillion in the year of 2023. Out of that, the debt was increased by roughly $2.2 trillion. All of this is untenable, my friends. If there is another crash, what then? Somehow I don't think we can afford another $24 trillion in debt as a country. But time, of course, will tell. And that, my friends, will bring our episode to a close once more. From the To Be Frank show, I am Adrian, and I'll see you all next time.